Okay, Mr. Williams, you're live on YouTube.
We are live on YouTube, everybody, and welcome to the PAW meeting. And I'm glad to see some people here in the audience, and really appreciate you guys taking the time to come here. We'll get started, and again, I promise you, we won't put the camera on you guys. That's one of the promises at PAW meeting, unless it gets wild, and then we have to get the action on that. But for the most part, the camera will stay on me. We'll go YouTube live, and this will be available for people to watch also. Also, the format of our PAW meetings, let's see. There we go. Had to make sure. Format of our PAW meetings is really to just share what's happening in the district, answer questions, and seek input. So if you have questions as I'm talking, hypotheticals, whatever, it's okay to stop and ask the question, and we can discuss it. If I know the answer, I'll answer it. If I don't, I'm not going to make anything up. I'll go and look up the answer and come back and follow up with you later on. So I really appreciate the input. The PAW meetings have been very helpful over the years that I've been here as superintendent. I guess I can start saying years. I'm 3.5 years in, and I can't believe time is flying like that. But there's been a lot of really good input that we've had. So with our announcement just at the beginning, snow day makeup days. Here's an announcement for this. It's no secret that we've had a lot of different snow days, but there's a state law that requires a minimum number of hours, and you can see that I have that here on the screen. And those hours differentiate based on grade level. And so right now, even after all of the hours that all the days that we've had snow days on, we have two different grade levels or grade spans that require additional time. The one is Hamer 4th grade and high school 9 through 12. Both of those grade levels require extra days to come in. And so Hamer 4th grade requires 2 days. And the proposed plan is that on the tutoring days, these are days that staff members, buses are already going, that Hamer 4th grade will come April 14th and May 12th. That will give them the hours that they need to make up their deficit. A common question that people have is, why is Hamer 4th grade required to go when Tarleton 4th grade is not? And the simple answer is the length of day. Hamer's school day ends at 3 o'clock. They have a shorter amount of instructional hours that add up over the year of the school year. Tarleton 4th grade is on a longer school day because of the high school being on this campus. So they have more instructional hours that build up over the year. So that's why Hamer 4th grade would be required to go and Tarleton 4th grade would not. We still will have tutoring days offered for the rest of the district on that day. So we still will have our teachers and our staff members here. Tutoring will still be offered to the other levels. And you can see that high school requires 3 days. We already made one of those days up on Friday. And that was a teacher work day. So we didn't have to change anything with teacher contracts. But high school will also be required April 14th or May 12th. Any questions with that? I've had initially when I sent out the message to cancel school on the one day, and I said, we need to come to school again. That was just indicating that we've reached our limits with some of the classes. But after I had a chance to go back and look at all the different grade levels, I figured there's no reason to disrupt the entire district when we just have to have these grade levels come. So I'm hoping that will work with most families. That's why I made that decision the way I did. So we'll go ahead and get into the agenda. The first item is our supplemental levy renewal. This renewal has been supplemental levies go every 2 years when districts choose to run that. The history of supplemental levies at West Jefferson started in 2012. That was a time we were coming right off of the recession. There was a change in 2007 with the funding formula on how schools were funded, and when that funding formula in 2007 shifted from local property tax to a state-based tax, smaller districts like our own lost out on funding. And then uncoupled with the recession, there were a lot of tightening up of the budgets. And what happens in our district, we don't have anywhere for people to live. It's just that simple. We don't have places for teachers to live unless you're married to somebody. Or in my case, I have a family member pass away, I can move into the house. It's one of those things, we just don't have places for people to come. And when we have 60% of our teaching staff coming from out of district, it makes it difficult for us to compete with other school districts. When you say you can make the same amount of money, but guess what? You have to drive 45 minutes one way and 45 minutes back. What happens is teachers come here, they get trained, and then they leave. When I worked at Madison School District, that was kind of the joke at the middle school. They'd say, yeah, we just send the new teachers out to West Jefferson and then we hire them back in a couple of years. And actually, there were about 4 teachers on staff at the middle school when I was an assistant there that started their time here at West Jefferson. And so, again, this was way before my time, but the community came in and they got together and they said, let's do something so the district has a way to help supplement the salaries. And that's what we do with the supplemental levy. It's not just for our teachers, but it's also for our classified. There's a lot of discussion the last couple of years with how, when I say classified, that means hourly employees. So the hourly employees would be anybody who's not a certified teacher or administrator. The way that Idaho funds those positions is based off of a formula that was started in 1994. I was a freshman in high school. Emily, you might have been a senior. I'm not trying
I was gone.
maybe, but that's, I'd like to think that was just a few days ago, but really the funding formula that budgets for classified employees was made in 1994. That was before the internet. That was before any of the other regulations and things that get put on schools. And so it's just in a nutshell, the funding formula doesn't reach what we need to pay our classified employees. And to try to keep up, the districts that have McDonald's and those things in their district, they really want to just be able to pay their classified staff what McDonald's can start them out with. And we're still under what McDonald's starts, but we've improved since I've been here, and greatly to the supplemental levy. And so that's just the facts of the supplemental levy. I don't have, I think I need to push escape and I can pull up. There we go. So this is on the flyer that went out on the QR code, talks about what a supplemental levy is, why renew the current supplemental, why the school board was saying, yes, we want to go back out and do this, the percentage that it takes to pass a supplemental levy, the history of the supplemental levy. In 2012, the amount was requested for $300,000. That was increased in 2021. And again, the proposed tax, one thing, and again, as a school district, we don't have a lot of options to generate money. We are a public service and we require to have taxes. That's just all there is to it. We can't do this without having the support of community members and taxes. Now, I know that there are some that have differing opinions about what taxes should go to, why we have them. That's I'm not here to try to say, do this or don't do that. My purpose is to educate why the district proposes to run a supplemental levy, the cost per 100,000 that will occur, and the 10-year average for the overall tax rate. There are 3 different bonds or levies that the school district has utilized in the history of West Jefferson. One is a supplemental levy, which started in 2012. Another one is a plant facility levy, which is for 10 years, and that one will end and need to be discussed whether or not we renew that. And that's to help with maintenance of the maintenance budget. Again, looking at the maintenance that's given through the state, it's really meager compared to what the needs are at the schools. And then the last was the bond, which is for major renovations. All 3 of those together create this overall tax rate. And the 10-year average is 342 per 100,000, and we're currently at 316. As I meet with our, I'll answer your questions. I meet with our financial advisors. As we look at that, we try to keep that as level as possible, so there's not fluctuation from year to year.
So the 342 is our district's 10-year average.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, good question. So that's our district's 10-year average. And so the hard part is depending on the philosophy that people want to take or the board wants to approach. Some districts try to keep it at an average that just doesn't fluctuate year to year. They say, let's try to make our tax rate at this level and keep it at that level, just so there's not surprises. When a bond or levy falls off, and that's what happened in 2018. I was hired in 2019, and so there was not one that was in the process of being run when I took over this job. And so when that happened, there was a drop and it went down to 261. For the taxpayer, it's like, oh great, we dropped it. But then when the school comes to ask for money to say, we really do need to fix these buildings or do this, the conversation is, well, now that's going to raise my taxes. Yes, it raises and fluctuates from year to year. And that's why, as I meet with our board and we discuss the different strategies, I've proposed to try to keep things as balanced as possible, because it allows us to still be able to function as a school. But again, it's the taxpayer that decides. And at West Jefferson, we're hoping to provide a product that you want to bring your kids here, that you can be happy with, be a place where the community recognizes that this is a community gathering place, not just here at Tarleton, but also on the Hamer campus. Those are all things that I consider as I look at as superintendent that I'm hoping come out through our mission statement and vision statement, that we're just here part of the community wanting to make sure that we're including as many as possible. So our election is next week. Hopefully the flyers got through the mail in the snow. But if there's any that have any other questions, feel free to call the district office. I'd be happy to visit with you and answer the questions on that. Other questions for the group here? Okay. The next one, this one's kind of an interesting one that I've been thinking about for several years. Parent choice in education, West Jefferson School District options. And one thing that I think is exciting about Idaho does offer immense parent choice in education. In the United States, we're one of the states that offer so many different options. So our option here is a public school district. There are charter schools, which are a public charter school, magnet schools, online schools, so many different things, homeschools for parents that want to homeschool. So many different things that allow parents the choice. One thing that, especially after COVID, that kind of started opening up my eyes, but these were things that were even in code even prior to COVID, was flexibility in education. There are a lot of different things that we can do as a public school that are offered at a lot of these other schools. And specifically the online options. This is one thing that as I'm thinking of, parents are the ones that really know their children the best, and they're trying to find what fits them. And I totally get it that the public school may not be the perfect fit for every single child every single time. I get that. As much as we can try to do that, our kids are different. Each of our children, those of you that have children, they're different. And some perform better in a social environment, and some might need different structures. One thing that I want to explore is having a stronger online option for West Jefferson. So that our community members that have kids that have been taking online classes from other schools might want to come and take online classes from us. And the reason for that is in our community and in our small school, our mission statement is a small school, big opportunities, endless possibilities. And we try to do that. We have electives that a lot of small schools don't have. We have welding programs, we have auto mechanics programs, we have foods and nutrition programs, we have music programs, we have orchestra, we have band, we have amazing talent here in with the kids. But when students have been homeschooled, they can come to school and take part of that already. But what's happening is we haven't, as a district, asked those parents and said, what online school are you doing? Or is it a pure homeschool or is it online? Because if a student is being taught online through from a different school, we really should charge tuition for those kids to come here to West Jefferson, because that online school is receiving the tuition for that student.
We charge the other school,
We
not
should-
the parent.
We should charge the other school, yep, so that other school is receiving it. But that's just one more hoop for us to have to say, you know, if Julie wants to bring her child to that, and I say, Julie, sorry, before you come, I need to make sure I go to your online school and make sure that they're paying us tuition for the time that they're here. It's doable, and we've reached out to others in the past, but a lot of times we just didn't even do it because of the headache. We don't have the staff to track those down and call every single school with that. Having an online option for West Jefferson would allow students to be able to graduate with a West Jefferson diploma, whether they were here at school or whether they finished the requirements from West Jefferson. My goal really is to open it up and say, how can we as a community feel more of a community? And I think this would be one way for that to happen. This is something that is being proposed. I've mentioned this in work meetings in the past with the board, but I have not come out and said, hey, school board, this is what I want to do, and jump on it 100%. But I'm wanting to get feedback from parents and to say, parents, would you support this? One of the things that when COVID hit, we did have this option, but we did not have school employees be the ones that are like owning that or really overseeing it. It was something that we would assign to a counselor or assign to even an admin assistant. For this to really work, we need to find somebody in our district that would be able to own this and be able to really help. So they have office hours, they have time where they're contacting students. These students would be able to receive tutoring. That's one thing that by having it here closer and having our own teachers or teacher to look over this, the students that live here, they could still connect and come. And then it's fluid. Maybe during the second trimester, when different things are not needed at home, the students could come for 2 or 3 classes a day. Then the third trimester, maybe they do it differently. And so I'm looking for just flexibility options for our students. And that was just one thought that I had. So Julie, thought?
For the students that choose to do like mostly the online schooling under this idea that you have, would they have to pass all of the same requirements as the kids that are going to school in the building?
So for this to happen, the graduation requirements would have to be lined up, and that would be something that would have to be really ironed out during work meetings with the school board. Reaching out.
Most districts have in-person graduation requirements and online graduation requirements.
And some have the same.
Some have them the same, but that's something that the board would have to decide.
Yeah. Yeah.
Questions?
So,
Would they be participatory through like Zoom with the normal classroom, or would they have
good question.
the curriculum they did on their own?
Good question. They would not have it through Zoom. It would be on a format where they would have a checklist of items to go through, probably links to different things to go read or go watch videos on, answer the questions,
So
taking
they
final
wouldn't
tests.
have to exactly spend the same amount of hours in a classroom as they would in
No,
at a home.
so, and that's one of the difference between offering an online, you know, as I go back to the instructional hours. This is in code where it says this is instruction hours where people have to be here. But in this guide, the IDO's Education Flexibility Guide, and we will go in on our board docs, and we'll put all these in after this meeting. So if you, we'll have all these items for you to be able to look at. But this guide goes through all the different things that schools can offer. And some of those things are generated around mastery-based education. Some of those things are a law that was passed last year was called direct learner, no.
Direct learning instruction.
It's a independent learner or self-directed learner. So there was a bill last year called self-directed learner, which gives the districts options to create these plans with parents. So all of these things are available. I just, as a public school, I want to explore it and not give the impression, because I think there's an impression out there that if you want something different, don't go to your public school because they're not going to work with you. Only go to these other schools because these are the ones that will work with parents. And there's a lot of different things that I want, you know, those that have been doing the online schools, if they come and say, these are the things that they've offered for us. They've offered us technology. Well, the students, West Jefferson student, we offer technology to students. We'd take care of that. If they say, well, how do I ensure that I have internet? I was talking with some individuals this last week at a conference, and they're able to get reimbursements from the state as they offer online instruction. There's a lot of different ways that could be very beneficial for parents. And the parents that live here that say, well, I don't want to, for whatever reason, whether my child doesn't do well in big groups or whether our family business makes it difficult for kids to always be at school, that's okay. And I think in the past, it's public schools have always been, this is your option or not. Do what we say or don't. And like I said, Idaho's done a great job of having flexibility. I'm just wanting to explore that and go down that route. Yeah.
Does a parent who homeschools have more flexibility at picking the curriculum their teacher or their children learn versus those who are in class? Even though I know you still have to have a certain amount of guidelines to graduate with, you still have to have the same amount of.
I think there can be discussions on that. We are required to make sure that students are taught standards,
amount, right?
and those standards are taught and addressed and recorded. Homeschooling, I'll be honest, in Idaho, there's really very few requirements. It's pretty, and so I guess if a parent doesn't want to have any connection to the school, I think homeschool would probably be what they would want to do. But if you want to have a connection and build a partnership that way, I think this would be a good option for them.
Well, I think my question is, like, if I'm in the West Jefferson school online, then my child will learn what you guys offer?
What's being presented.
Yeah, what's being presented, or do the parents have more flexibility in choosing what the child at home learns versus what the child at school is taught? Does that make sense?
I think you can have that conversation. If the parent could come and say, I would like to teach this, and this is the standard that it's going to hit, why wouldn't we be able to do that?
Okay.
I think if the standard was, I don't know, there's so many different standards, but let's say a phonics standard, and the parent says, well, I don't want to teach this part, I only want to teach it this way. I would have to see if it met a standard somehow and would have to look at that. The one district that we talked to along those lines, they would even come and some of the parents would even propose some of the electives. They said, we found this elective, we'd like this to count as elective, would that work for you? And as long as the school is able to look at that, I think those types of things could be discussed and explored on that. So it kind of answers your question to say yes, but I think it would have to be a conversation on what's required. Did that help answer it?
Yeah.
So,
Right. Go ahead.
no,
Yeah, I just understood it as it evolves, there's room for
Yes,
flexibility on deciding what a child could learn. If they couldn't.
Absolutely.
Follow the guidance standards. that were
you know, and like what, right now, for a high school example, students that are coming to school, they can take IDLA classes, which is the Idaho Digital Learning Academy classes, and those can replace the actual credits for them. Some students do that to recuperate, some students do that to advance. That would be an option. So we are currently using IDLA and also another online format that several other schools have been using. I'm just wanting to try to fine tune this and see if it's something that we can grow, is really what I'd hope for.
So would this online option be something as it is now for in-person that a student could come and take a single class or 2 classes? It wouldn't have to be a full enrollment or.
If you're fully enrolled with a combination of in-class and at home, then you are fully enrolled. And that's just something that we would have to make sure that there's a plan with the parent, that this is, as long as the student's working towards the graduation requirement, then that option's available.
So if they only wanted to come in to take a music class, but do everything else at home, that is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or cooking class, or, that's the one thing, it's the electives that, because a lot of times the math and English and parents that want to work with their kids at home, they can do a fine job with that, but it's hard to replicate, come and be on this judging team, or come and be on this team, or come and play in the orchestra. Those are things that are hard to replicate when you're at homeschool. And that's why a lot of homeschool groups or even some of the online groups try to have get-togethers or things to kind of create that. This just kind of flips that to say, well, let's see if we can do it within the guideline of the school. So I don't know this. So
Yeah, no,
again, I'm
it's
just trying to, I don't have like the exact product. Again, I need to go to my school board and just, I'm looking to get feedback from this jumping off point here at the PAW meeting and see if it's something that we really can explore.
So do you have numbers of how many students are participating in another educational option that you would be kind of offering this to?
Like,
Are there that many?
I don't have like
Mhm.
ideas of like gone out and put a poster board together. We got these kids here. I don't know. I don't know if it's only going to be kids within the geographical boundaries of West Jefferson. That means if there's somebody that lives in the region that still might want to drive, that might live in a different county, that they could still take this class, and they could still take classes on this format. So I'm not
Well,
sure.
I guess I'm just asking because I know they're not free. You can't just put them together.
Right.
And so I just wondered, how many are interested in something like this that you would, anyway, that's what I wondered.
And so I think
we would need help from the community.
I need-
Who we could reach out to.
one of the thoughts I had is after doing this is sharing out the link to the YouTube. Hopefully people will watch it, but also share out a survey on this just to see who would be. That would give us more understanding. Like I said, there's and it will be something initially where maybe we don't know until we try. That's kind of where I've been stuck the last couple of years. Like, how do we really get this until there's a point of contact person who's really in charge of this? And so those are things that I'm trying to gather information before I make a decision, but it's so early. You're absolutely right. Maybe we put a survey out and there's nobody that wants to do this. And if they don't, then I guess we could say, well, we're offering school choice, but nobody's taking advantage of it.
That's what makes me curious. I'm like, how many are asking for this or, and sometimes you do create something before it's actually asked for,
Right.
but
I haven't had a lot of people asking about this, partly because I don't think people would thought that public schools were serious about doing something like this. It's just, there's a handful of virtual online schools that people go and they take, and maybe they want to stick with those. But I would hope, for the reason of to try to attract people to West Jefferson, get a West Jefferson diploma, that's what I'm hoping for. So it just feels like people that live here, a lot of them do come and interact at different times, whether it's through the music department, whether it's through sports, like we have great FFA departments. We have so many different things that sometimes I think kids miss out on because maybe they feel like, well, I'm not fully a student there. So I shouldn't think that they don't know what the options could be. So keeping my fingers crossed. We'll see how that goes. But good questions. Other thoughts or questions? This is really helpful.
So if I sign my child up for online school and then say we do it for a couple of months and I decide don't like it, can I
Just bring it back.
switch them over, bring them back, or the vice versa? And is there a limit to how many times in a given year a parent can do that?
Well,
like if I want to do through the winter months, can I do it?
we would want to take that on a case by case situation.
Okay.
And our recommendations would really be what's best for the kid. And, we know that any type of disruption
Mhm.
it takes away from just the continuity of
Right.
being in a routine. It's amazing that the routines, can help out so much. So, but I think if it was, we don't want to, during the winter,
Yeah,
I'm going to Arizona. Instead of taking the kid and putting them into a different school, or sometimes parents choose to not put them in any school. It would be better for that kid to start the school year in the classroom at West Jefferson, jump over to an online portion, go to the winter destination, and then come right back to school. All of their records will still be here. We'll be able to track the progress of the online classes, and that will actually be easier than just taking them in and out and choosing a different homeschool model.
right.
And sometimes it's even, I can see this with a health reason. Maybe the child has a health issue and they need some time to stay home and become healthy before they can come back. This is a great way for, this just gives us a lot of flexibility, kind of like
It's open to interpretation based on what the child needs.
what the child
There are no
needs,
strict guidelines at this point.
right?
Okay.
And I think keeping those open for conversations and finding a way that we can have a win-win. That's what I'm looking for.
So I have a child who's in a math class and the teacher is trying to keep that class on the same spot as the other class.
Like
It's at a different time.
Schedules.
Yeah. And so my concern is with the online and the in-person,
Mhm.
they may be at different points. They may be on chapter 5 and in person, they're only on chapter 4 because we've missed 7 days of school. You know what I mean? And so that.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's why it
gonna
wouldn't be direct instruction from our classes here. That's why we would utilize, IDLA or some of those other online based.
yeah, if
things so
if
that
they're
the
doing
student
online,
Can move at their own pace.
they're doing online, they're moving at their own pace on that. But you're thinking if they want to come back
The
in,
back and forth, I need
Yeah.
a class at home right now and I need so that's something, anyway.
Yeah.
Just, I'm pointing out a wrench, not throwing the whole thing out, just.
So,
just tighten it up here or there.
so the
Yeah.
way that would look is if they wanted to come back into the school, but they were enrolled in an online class, we could have them maybe assigned to that teacher's classroom during a tutoring time, where that student could continue to work on that online class with a math teacher's help. Does that make sense?
I don't know if that's really addressing, I understand the
What
question.
I'm
to be-
saying is normally an online class
Mhm.
will go faster than an in-person class.
Right.
Because it's one-on-one. And so then my student wants to come to an in-person class, but he's 4 chapters ahead.
Right.
And so what do you do during that time? When the
Yeah.
in-person class is trying to catch up?
Would definitely have to,
Yeah,
that would be one of the situations we'd have to sit down with the math teacher and figure out what.
Yeah, like I'm saying, it's not throw the whole thing out, just something that I've observed and experienced that
Mhm.
you would want to keep in mind.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Great discussion. I'm so glad people came.
It's much more fun when there are people here.
It's pretty boring when it's just Julie that I'm talking to. They have to listen to me all the time. All right, any other questions? And and if things come up, when we put the survey out, that'd be a great place to put ideas to say, just be aware of this, or, because I know I haven't thought of every single wrench that could come up, so thank you. All right, we'll move on to the next one. So school organization for next year, trying to see if that. Those are. So I shared over here, when I as superintendent started looking at school organization, what I mean by that is which grade levels, how many students in a class, where do I put people at? It all starts with the number of students and what they call the computation of support units. This is where the school receives its funding from. It's generated from support units. We don't generate based off of every single kid. It's kind of an average of the kids. Years past, it had been on average daily attendance. After COVID hit, the state board has allowed a temporary rule for it to be based off of enrollment, but they take either the enrollment or the average daily attendance, and then they put them into support units, and then they give you a calculation, and then they have a multiplier on how much money the school gets. So sometimes we don't get paid for every student that's here. If I have my hope, I would wish that the legislature would allow us to be able to provide based off of enrollment instead of attendance. One thing we found with attendance is, especially after COVID, people really don't care whether they come or not. That's what I know, that's harsh to say, but our attendance is not as high as it was before COVID. And that's similar to most school districts that we've talked to. A lot of school districts, even if they had 95 to 96% attendance, they're down closer to 90-91% attendance now. And part of that is actually not a bad thing. If people are sick, they stay home, which is actually kind of a nice thing, but it's a double-edged sword when it comes to school funding, because I want people to stay home, but when you stay home, we receive less funds to be able to operate. And so as I look at that, a couple of things I wanted to point out. Let me see if I can, no, that won't go up. So kindergarten support units are at 0.5. So really the best way to look at this, let's imagine Tarleton Elementary has 20 kids in AM and 20 kids in PM. That would be 40 kids total. That would generate 1 unit. But our classes have been smaller than that. And so if it's 30 total, you'd come down here in between the 26 to 30, and it only generates 0.85. That means that the district only gets that multiplier for our kindergarten teacher at 0.85. So you can see how there's a lot of strategic, it's not just as easy as saying, oh, I've got a class here, I need to just put a teacher here, and we get funded for that full teacher. I'm only getting funded for a portion of that teacher. When you look at the elementary support units, they generate differently at Tarleton compared to Hamer. And this is something that I've been able to educate a lot of people on, when some say, well, why is it that Hamer so small? And in Tarleton, they look at that and they say, well, actually, it's easier for us to generate a teacher at a smaller school than it is at the bigger school. So when we look at Tarleton's enrollment is between 160 and 299. That means every 20 students, or ADA of 20, means average daily attendance, would give out a support unit for a teacher. At Hamer, where the school size is between 16 to 33, every 12 students generates the teacher. And so I know I say this because it helps me lead into my thoughts on what we go forward with, or my proposals. And a lot of times I don't really know 100%. Our attendance from last year to this year has dropped. We have dropped about 20 students in the district. And so the funding that we received last year was set at around approximately 37 support units. Luckily, we have like a safety net, but it drops. And if it would have dropped completely, it would have dropped almost to 35. We would have lost 2 support units. So those are things that I keep my eye on, saying, okay, what's the projection for next year? I wish we had more housing for people to live in, but I know some people think we don't want housing, we want to stay small. It's kind of a bittersweet sweet battle when it comes to planning for school finance on that.
So this ADA, is that, so this year we're running on last year's ADA? Is
So-
that how the funding
So
works?
so where we project, we look at they have the ADA and we get paid out, but as we build the budget for next year, we take our current numbers
Uh-huh.
to make that forecast.
Okay, but then the money comes in with the current,
It
so it'll
does.
be, we'll actually receive what is happening
Yes.
for the attendance.
So
Okay,
what happens is they give us an advancement on that money in August. And then by February, they've calculated what our ADA is. And then, so when we get a payment in February, it's adjusted to this year's.
it'll go up or down according
Yes.
to.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's,
And that's why attendance is so important.
so, and so even though with enrollment, where we've been really fortunate to be able to count every student that was enrolled, they still have the multipliers. It's still not 1 for 1. And I know that there are discussions. We haven't seen a bill come out at the state legislature. When I was at my last meetings last week, there was some rumors that one would come out. And if we moved strictly to a 1-to-1 base formula, that's really going to hurt small schools and it's really going to hurt Hamer. I don't know how else to say that, just because if they take away all the different multipliers, that's going to put a lot of stress on the superintendent to figure out what do we do. So I'm actually hoping that with discussion, you know, that we figure out a way to make sure that the schools are able to continue. Like we've been really fortunate. I don't want to say that we're just destitute because there's been so many great advances. The only thing I'm asking for is stability. It's easier for me to budget off of enrollment than it is to budget off of attendance. Because I don't know what the parents are going to do, but I do know if the kids come. And I know some of the arguments that we've heard from people that are hesitant to move towards enrollment. These would be representatives that have some reservations. They feel like the schools are going to find phantom students and count students for when they're not here. But regardless of whether a student is at school or not, the teacher is still required to help them make sure they make it up. And so to me, it doesn't make sense. It's almost like it's on one hand, they're saying, we need you to have 100% attendance, but we want to give parents all these choices to do whatever they want. And so like, okay, so where's the middle ground? So I'll get off my soapbox right now. I'm hoping for stability and flexibility on that. So, I again, going back to the support units, that's where I start to look at how many support units we have. And again, right now it's just, it really is a guess. We take some of the data that we get from our February numbers, and then we start to hopefully project, and then we look at the numbers of students that we anticipate coming here. All right, so in that, administrative assignments for next year, Mr. Johnson will still be the principal, no change. Look at this. This is the first year I think I've had no change in what's going on. Mr. Johnson will stay PK through 6. He'll be the principal at Hamer Elementary and Tarleton Elementary. I love what he's doing. I support what he's doing with these 2 elementary schools. My recommendation to him when he came in, I said, we're West Jefferson School District. We're not independent little schools. And as a community, they've done different things. They've done different activities together. Hamer still gets to do a few things that are still unique to Hamer. Tarleton still does a few things that are unique to Tarleton, but they've done a great job between the 2 staffs and the students to be able to get together and do some activities. I've really appreciated what he's done. And Mr. Davis, he's in the audience too. Secondary principal 7 through 12. So we do have the 2 schools, junior high and high school. They coexist together, but they're still separate schools. And the reason why they have to coexist is we do not have enough support units to create teacher positions to have our own independent junior high. And so I really appreciate Mr. Davis's staff has been great with what we've done with the junior high. Now this next one, this is a proposal And again, it's gonna depend on where our numbers fall. But Hamer Elementary, the all-day kindergarten, I've heard a lot of positive feedback, and I guess I can speak most from personal experience. My daughter rides with us here to Territon campus. She gets on a bus, she drives up, she gets to Hamer about 8:20 up there, and she stays all day long at kindergarten. It's been wonderful. I've loved it. I know that there was some concerns from people saying, oh, that's gonna be too long of a day. Academically, I think it's been amazing. They almost, it's approximate. As I looked at the snow day numbers, I could see how many hours the Hamer kindergarten logs in a year compared to the halftime. It's almost 300 more hours in the year that they have that instruction. The all-day kindergarten gives them a lot more time to be able to work on, I don't want to say fun things, but when you're little, you want to do crafts. You know, that's
Play learning.
those are things that sometimes we think, oh, they shouldn't be doing that. They just need to learn how to do the quadratic equation. Come on, you know. But that's an important part of it, and I feel like as a district we've offered that. There were 8 parents whose kids rode the bus, or at least were in the Territon boundaries that went to Hamer. One thing that I've looked at.
How big is that class this year? Is it 12?
So they had 13 at one time and then somebody moved away, so there's 12 currently. And so the other 2 classes at Hamer, so we have a kindergarten all day, there's a combined 1st and 2nd grade class and a combined 3rd and 4th grade class. There may be some, we haven't done a survey yet with all of our kindergarten parents.
So this is this year's, you've got a little green strip there that's kind of marking out the year. So this is this year's configuration.
Well,
This is the.
this is what I'm
Oh, this is
proposing.
the proposal for next year.
That's what I'm proposing to do next year also. And so I don't know if there's any current kindergartners that want to keep, that could come to Territon that want to stay up there. There's a way that we could make that work, going back to the flexibility process. In 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, the hours, even getting up there at 8:20, those hours would still be legit 100%. 4th grade, and that's one of the reasons why 4th grade jumps from 810 hours to 900 hours. And that's where that would be hard for us to send a bus after school starts here back to Hamer for a 4th grade. But the reason why I'm saying that is if there are parents in that kindergarten class that want their kids to go to Hamer again in 1st grade, that's still a possibility. Those are things that we can look at. Now, Territon Elementary, we do have half day, AM and PM. Part of that is because we got to be careful about space. We don't have the space in Territon to dedicate to all day kindergarten at this point. Next year, we're intending on having 2 1st grade classes, probably about 18 students in each class. Again, that's lower than the FTE account. 1st grade, 2nd grade classes, there'll be 1 2nd grade class. This is where we had a small class here in Territon, it was 23. I know we had some concern from some parents saying that's just way too big. When we look at that, we sent aides in, asked the teacher, do you want more help? The teacher felt very comfortable, confident. Worked with Mr. Johnson closely, we're tracking the academics. 23, and again, maybe it's because Mr. Williams came from a big school district. 23 students in a 1st grade class is a dream in any of the other districts. But 23, if we're doing it on ADA, really that barely funds a teacher. So if we're looking at this from being fiscally responsible, it's one of those decisions of we can't have really, really small classes and continue to maintain all the FTE spots. Now, the 3rd, 4th, and 4th grade classes, I have question marks right here because I'm not sure what we're going to do. And again, I'm not sure where the teachers are going to be. Mr. Johnson, he's the one that decides which teacher goes where. Teachers don't have to be assigned to the same class every single year. But there's 70 students, maybe 71 between those 3 classes. This is one area, when I sit down with Mr. Johnson, that we might look at having a split class. Having a pure 3rd, pure 4th, and a split 3rd and 4th. Just to make sure that they're meeting that. But again, this is just a thought. This is a proposal, but I wanted to share that out there because I'm sure there'll be parents that will have concerns one way or another. But we haven't seen any long-term impacts of kids having a split class. And just to say, the superintendent grew up in split classes all through Hamer Elementary. Hopefully it turned out okay. Got the board chair in here, you know, you can renegotiate that calendar later, but I grew up doing split classes and there's ways to do it. It's one of those things that if we're mindful of so many different things on making sure we have intervention. So that's an idea. The 5th and 6th grade classes will continue the same as this current year where they have homerooms and then they rotate with grade levels. So questions on these proposals? Questions, comments, hate mail? Anything else? Maybe you can have some after the camera's off. I get it. I'm open to discuss after the camera's off too. All right, we'll go to the next calendar proposal. And so this is one that I have talked in school board meetings. This is a draft calendar, similar to the one that we had this year. I've had a lot of positive feedback. Again, this is where school would start the 21st. We would go on some Fridays, just to be on, because we're on a trimester system, we have to go on some of those Fridays. I don't anticipate or even want to go down the road of even looking at harvest. Harvest works well for us. My proposal is superintendent, keep it as it is. What I try to shoot for, because harvest is not just potatoes, it is also third crop hay. I try to hit the last week of September, the first week of October. Where the calendar falls, one of the things that, as I discussed this with our teachers, where Christmas falls on a Monday, and we're trying to get done before Memorial Day, that there's not a 2-week break during Christmas break. We come back on January 3rd. There will be a full week of spring break. As I look outside and think of spring break, it's actually second winter break this year. But that's kind of the proposal that we've had. We've had trimesters for quite a few years with this. I'm not sure what, you know, as I'm moving forward. I don't know if there's any thoughts or anything from. Pretty okay. We'll go to the next one then. There's no reason to. And the last one, just a West Jefferson phone app. If you haven't downloaded this, I encourage you to download it. And if you go into the App Store, for those that are Apple, I'm looking at Julie because she's like, nobody. She's the Android user in the district office. But if you go to either the Android store or the App Store for Apple, West Jefferson SD 253 Idaho. And then the app looks just like that. This is where we will be doing our communication. I did send out a communication notice during one of the snow days, but when we pulled it up, we recognized, like Julie, for example, had her home number listed in Power School. I've asked Mr. Reyna to go back and start looking through that. But the first point is getting everybody to download that, and then we're going to move towards all of our communications through this app into next year. So we'll still send out the Kinvo messages. One of the things I mentioned at the school board meeting is the Kinvo doesn't allow me to send out the messages, but this will allow the district to send it out, as well as teachers. That's going to be one of the key points. This little section down here will have a section that says rooms, and then you'll have access directly to your teacher in the classroom. And if you need to send a text message, if your high school students that have phones, they can communicate with the teacher as well. So if there was an assignment that they didn't understand, they can get onto that and communicate with teachers that way as well. So. And
that's coming in the near future.
Yeah, they're working through that. That should be coming out in the next couple of weeks. So those in the audience, have you downloaded the app? Okay, some yes, some no. So looks like it's good that you came. Do that. So. Questions, comments, and suggestions. That's really what I wanted to do with the PAW meeting. Great discussion today, but I'll pause for questions or comments.
I have a question about the Fridays. So has the academic scores, test results of the students changed, having the calendar this year changed to more Fridays off, or has it stayed the same?
At this point, we won't really have a comparison between like the ISAT until the ISAT data is completed. And so I don't know. I know the elementary, when Mr. Johnson does his data meetings, he hasn't brought anything to my attention saying that there's been an impact on like the 95% reading scores or the IRI with Idaho Reading Indicator scores. I haven't been told that yet. Mr. Davis, have you had anything with any specific data that you could share on that, or do we need to wait till like the ISAT?
Yeah, the only thing we have is we have SECA that we take. That's more like an interim ISAT. It's more shortened version of the test. And so we've got just one of those completed. But then we have the ISAT at the end and we can compare.
So it'll be more
So
the
we
end
don't
of the
have
school year, we
final
won't have that data.
We don't have any more data yet.
But for those numbers to compare to last year's numbers.
Well, I don't think they did the SECA last year, and that's the one thing where
It's pretty neat.
Oh,
where with the standard approach to the teaching, they give that assessment so they can see where the kids are at with the standards, and then the teacher needs to adjust their teaching based on that. So we're hoping by coupling that approach to the teaching, you know, with the trade-off on those days, that we won't see a loss. And other districts that went to 4-day, they said that they didn't see a loss. And so we'll see. I guess people can laugh in my face. Or
I was just curious what the data was showing.
and definitely, we're interested in that. And that's one thing is we start to take the ISAT. There's a lot of different views on is that data reliable? It's once a year.
Well, and they change it too, cause
Yeah,
as I was looking at some stuff for one of my students, there was the line here and then they changed something in the test. So then the line changes. So can you even use that year and how do you
Right.
compare? So.
and it seems like the target is constantly moving.
Well, it's learning, so it will move.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because they'll find something new that should be included or not, or.
and so to not having a response to where we are on the final assessments, I'm really pleased with the progress that our teachers and administrators are making with the focus on standards-based teaching to make sure that we're really focusing in on what matters most. And so by identifying the standards that are the most important and teaching them more deeply, we're hoping to see that will equate to higher scores on that final test.
So. Where's the fun stuff?
The fun stuff,
Yeah.
there's still fun stuff. We have electives. And so just because I say that doesn't mean that there's no other fun stuff at all.
Okay.
But really the ISAT's gonna hit your ELA and your math and now science.
Okay.
And so there's fun stuff that goes in there. And
I was
sometimes
just coming back to kindergarten, that's all.
all
Because you said now they have time for that. And so as we move the older kids to more standards-based,
yeah,
I want to be sure that they're still having some
it
of
actually-
the fun stuff. It's not so like you
That's a
have to
great
get
point.
this, you can't do.
it actually should allow us to be able to have more time for that by focusing on what's most important. We should have more time to be able to have the kids feel successful. Now, again, as I have kids, and that's one thing, being a superintendent, having my own kids come through the school system. And again, my kids are different than everybody else's kids and their experiences may be different. But as my oldest is in junior high, and right now the 4 junior high teachers do a great job of on the same page as this is how we're grading. These are the different things that you can expect. And it's not always about here's an A, here's a B. It's where are you at with the standard? And I think it's really motivated my son to be focused on this is what I have to learn. Basically, not what do I have to do to get an A? And so he can have really specific conversations with I need to do better on these things. And then he can focus on that. And the tutoring days, there's been several times that my kids have come in on tutoring days to retake an assessment. And so I guess this process, it really changes the whole mindset. And it won't happen overnight. I know I've mentioned that over the last couple of years, but I've been talking about this for a couple of years. I really think it's going to take 5 or 6 years for us to really see it embedded all the way through. But it's starting from the elementary, the junior high, And Mr. Davis is doing a great job as he's working with his teachers on moving in that direction. And so, but we'll still remember the fun stuff.
And I'm late to the party here, but what was the deciding factor to not have schools on Friday?
4-day school week, and that's just the calendar that came up. And so
Was it?
It was gas.
she's asking why did
What,
we move the 4-day school?
what were the,
What motivated?
what,
you
yeah,
to
what
change?
motivated to go from 5 days to 4 days?
You
What
know,
were the issues?
I should invite you to go watch all of the, because that was all last summer and.
I'm late to the party.
Wasn't it decided in like July?
So there was a, with gas prices as high, inflation running out of control. It's been talked about for 10 years in this district. I can go into my office and find 10 years worth of studies. With what do we do with Hamer Elementary? What do we do with schedules? What do we do with 4-day? You know, these are things that have been discussed. And really there were with the inflation and the gas prices and a majority of our teachers that travel, I wanted to create a spot where I could say, what can we do to make it where West Jefferson's a place you want to come and teach? Now, I know some will say, well, that doesn't make sense. Why do you want to do that? We have good teachers. And if we lose teachers after they're trained here, we're just spinning our circle again. And it might be for 5 days. It was actually the school board that asked me to look at that. There were teachers that went to school board members and asked them, what do you want to do? And I told the school board, this is what I've been hearing. And so they decided to make that change. And there are, I don't want to have to go say, oh, let's rip this open and see and say, but honestly, I have not heard negative about this. I know there are some that probably still didn't like it.
And I understand
might not.
that, I just don't want to dummy down our kids because of the economics. So you talk about less hours of school,
Mhm.
and I think if we are, you know, why are we giving our kids less education? Is it because of economics?
Yeah,
You increase the day, like the
So-
hours in a day.
so the hours are still the same as fewer days.
It's the same amount of hours that they're in the
And
school. because of the-
I can see, and I can see the argument,
day is lengthy.
I can see
so
the
that it
argument
makes
on
up
both
the day
sides.
that's gone.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just would rather see children getting educated in school than sitting at home watching YouTube and TikTok and video games, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And like I worry that we're allowing them, because the world we live in now, it's a crazy world. I just worry that we are giving them more free time to get themselves in trouble, where if you're scheduled and doing the things you should be doing. So it's like, I hope it wasn't just an economic impact that made that decision. Because when you look, where does Idaho fall on the scale nationwide? Where do we fall in education?
It depends on what you're viewing that at.
Matrix.
Overall, yeah, on the matrix,
Um,
overall academics, where do we fall? And I think that's an important thing to take into consideration, because if we're at the bottom, we gotta do all we
So-
can to get it back
So
up.
one thing I can speak on that, because I can see that education is going to be what you ever put into it.
Exactly.
And whether we go 6 days or 3 days, it's going to be what you put into it. And so when people say, well, Idaho is failing, or all you public schools are failing, like failing at what? Like when you look at, one of the things about what public schools I think do is we create a community resource, a community hub, a place for kids to come learn and grow together. And we're not all going to agree. And there's going to be times that, you know, we see that, you know, think about your businesses or think about your ecclesiastical settings. Do you agree with everybody that you're with in those settings at all times?
Oh, of course not.
You don't. And so I don't know. I can see the point, but I can also see somebody saying, I don't want my kid to go to school every single day. I want my kid to be with me sometimes. And there are some parents that feel that way. So who's right? Who's wrong?
I think it's important to look at the testing and let the testing decide. Because if your kids are testing subpar, then obviously we have to do something different. We can't just do it because
Yeah.
everybody wants to do it.
Yeah, and you can find reports that show that there's no impact on 4-day school weeks. You can find some that do. I don't think whether we're on a 5-day or 4-day encourages people to go to college. I think that's what mom and dad encourage you to do. I know the school can help out with that. And so, I don't know, there's a lot that goes into education. I guess the question is, what is the education? Is it really our job? And I'm kind of talking philosophical right now. Is it really the job of West Jefferson School District to make sure that all kids go to college?
Oh, no.
No, and it would be wrong for us to try to force that down everybody's throat. So does that mean that we failed as
No,
a
but I
district?
don't think college is the issue. I think it's education. It's just like, we don't teach cursive writing in school anymore. And I think that's such a travesty. My child will learn to do cursive because I think it's in our founding documents are in cursive.
Right,
All of our grandparents' letters are in cursive. If you do genealogy work, most of it is in cursive.
right.
And so I go, we dummy them down by taking things away. So that's fine. I have to take that in my own hand and I have to teach my children the things that I want them to learn. So like you say, it's up to a parent ultimately
Yeah.
to make sure how their child is educated. But we just have to make sure that, you know, if they are going to public school, they have all the tools that they need in order to succeed. So that if they want to go to college, they can.
Absolutely.
If they don't, they don't.
Yeah, and I think and that's our goal. I think it's 100%
Right.
what we're trying.
Yeah, and so that's all. I hope that we take into consideration. I'm not against not having Friday school. I'm not saying I'm for not having Friday school.
You're just saying,
What I'm saying is, I think it's very important that we take into account the actual, look at the whole picture after we've done it for a while and not be afraid to readjust it if it isn't working or celebrate it if it is. I think it's really important that we keep track of that and not just let it become a habit because we've always done it. Just like we've always gone to school 5 days a week. Well, if we don't need to, we don't need to. But if we need to be able to not be so prideful that we can't readjust it.
no, there's one thing that kind of leads me to a thought that I've had, and I didn't bring this up earlier because I'm trying not to like create panic in like teachers or anything with, oh no, change something, here we go. But when we look at the 5-day school, then there were a lot of different things that I looked at. We were also we've been on a trimester for a long time. And for a lot of years, we only taught math 2 out of the 3 trimesters, or English 2 out of the 3 trimesters. And a couple of years ago, we looked at that and said, we need to do a better job of offering English and math. And this was based off of scores. And so we reconfigured the trimester system and we required English and math for most years, not every single year in high school, but for 3 out of the 4. I'm almost, you know, as I get through the year 1 of a 4-day school year, I'm almost wondering if we need to relook at that and say, our trimester is the best for us, or should we be on a semester where we have history, science, English, and math taught all year long? You know,
There's lots of different
those
facets that we can
are
look
the
at.
types of
Just
things
the bottom line is
those are
the
the types of things
educational
that-
tests and scores that they're
that we're looking
meeting
at.
criteria.
And so, yeah, so my mind is always open to that, and
Mhm.
I love these types of discussions. I really do, because they help us see things from different ways. You know, and when I look at education, and again, going back philosophically, what is it that we really want from our kids at the end of the day? Do they need to know a ton of facts? Not really, because they have these things as long as they know how to use them correctly. But that might be debilitating us or not. I don't know, but our kids are going to be, we're trying to figure out how to prepare kids for jobs that have never been invented yet. And that's one thing that I'm hoping with, you know, looking at flexibility and things like that. You know, there will be in this area, you know, there will be a number of kids that will be able to go onto the farm or the family business and continue with that. But there's other kids that they're gonna have to figure out, how do I make it work in life? And really the people that are the most employable are ones that can get along with other people. They're respectful, they're responsible, and they're ready to work hard. Those are all things that I'm putting out from our, you know, our mission statement, and those are the type of people that can make things work. I don't know, but you're absolutely right. There still has to be enough knowledge there for them to access to be able to create those skills. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Great,
So thank you.
thank you.
Great discussion. Mr. Davis, anything on your mind?
No, I just, I like that you're talking about the data a little bit. A lot of that drives back to that and seeing where kids are growing, and that's something we look at. When we went to the 4-day week, my thoughts centered a lot around, and I've talked to a few other principals about this, what retention might look like for teachers. That was probably my big question, and that doesn't address your concern necessarily, but that was something that was brought up to me. Ryder's principal, I think he went through 9 interviews for one position last year. And almost every other candidate went to the district kind of closest by that had a 4-day week. So that was something that for me at the time was pretty big, but I don't think we ever look at taking a dip in what we're doing, but that was from a retention standpoint. He felt like that was pretty.
And I've actually had some pure 4-day people push back a little bit that I have my teachers come in on Fridays a couple times a month. They should, we like, for us to be professionals and be prepared for kids, we have to have that time. And so those are things that we need to continue.
So with the research that you did leading up to the 4-day school week with the different districts around us that had gone to a 4-day school week and had been on a 4-day school week for quite some time, they never went back to it, but one of the reasons was that they weren't seeing that the kids were being hurt, hurt academically, right? Is that, if I remember right.
Statistically, they weren't being hurt. I'm sure you could find different groups to say, oh, this group is being hurt, this group is being hurt. I know one of the comments at the board meeting that, well, this is going to hurt your second language learners. But then we went and looked at a district over in Boise, in the Boise Valley area, who has 85% Hispanic, and their scores actually went up on a 4-day. And so I don't know if that was because it took more stress off, that you could work with their families. I don't know. Maybe it was just luck of the draw.
Every community is different with their own dynamics.
It's going to be
It's hard to
different.
compare.
And so, yeah.
And now we've got 2 more school districts in the area that are looking, well, one of them is going to
Fremont is in
one
Riley's
of them is
considering.
considering it.
And Rigby has a hybrid, and so does Bonneville. So they're hybrids. I don't know. Do you have family in Rigby on the hybrid there? How does that look exactly? Do you know?
I just know for their family, it's difficult to have some kids go, some kids stay home.
Right.
Yeah, it's the way it's set up, and it's hard because they're
Yeah.
like, I don't want to go. She has to stay home, and that's really difficult
Right.
for the parents.
That's why it's one of the reasons we chose to just.
Struggle.
Yeah,
Yeah, they don't like it.
so
And I've tried to do that with our calendar here, is if we're in, we're in, if we're out, we're out, with the exception of the snow days. Sorry. That's gonna be a change. I'm sure we'll have people feeling that same way on that. So, well, great. Well, I will send out a survey just to kind of get an idea on the school flexibility stuff. If there's anything else with thoughts, but thank you so much for coming. We're gonna sign off. If there's anything else, Mrs. DeGraw will sign off and